Now we're moving on to our next panel. Our second panel is the role of smart infrastructure to achieve Vision Zero. We talked about that. Kristen talked about it in her intro. This will be moderated by Laura Chase. She is the president and CEO of ITSA. Now that's different than ITSA, which we mentioned, but that stands for the Intelligent Transportation Society of America. Laura, are you on board and ready to take off with your panel, please?
I am. Thank you, Charlie, and thrilled to be here today and to be a part of Velodyne's 2021 World Safety Summit. So thank you for having us. So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about how we're using technology to reduce vehicle crashes, keep pedestrians, bicyclists, and other road users safe, and create a data-driven, safe system approach to infrastructure and traffic management. A little background of ITS America. Our vision is for a better future transformed by intelligent mobility, one that is safer, greener, and smarter. At ITS America, we bring together public sector and private sector members, such as the three panelists that we have today, who are all ITS America members, around this core vision. Safety is and always will be a top priority for us and for our members. Unfortunately, recent trends are not going in the right direction. If you've been tracking the news, in 2020, when vehicle miles traveled were down because people stayed home and off the roads due to the pandemic, there was actually an 8% increase in fatalities, and the fatality rate increased by 24%. That was the highest increase in nearly 100 years. And just last week, NHTSA reported that we saw an 18.4% increase in roadway fatalities in the first 6 months of 2021, the largest 6-month jump in traffic fatalities on record. So we really have a serious problem to address. We also know from data that roadway fatalities don't necessarily hit people equally. They're worse for people of color. At ITS America, we believe people and communities across this country should be able to safely walk, bike, and drive in their neighborhoods and on our roadways. And we know that leveraging technology is a key to that. So let's jump right in. Today, I am joined by John Barad, Velodyne's Vice President of Business Development, Suzanne Murtha, the National Connected and Automated Technology Lead, for AECOM, and George Villarreal, Deputy Director of the Traffic Safety Division with the Texas Department of Transportation. All three of these panelists bring extensive backgrounds in the intersection of transportation and technology to our discussion today. So, everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm going to jump right in with the first question that I'm actually going to ask of all of you. So, as I just mentioned, state and local transportation agencies are increasingly concerned by the staggering number of pedestrian fatalities involving vehicles each year, even with Vision Zero efforts in play. As I mentioned, the recent NHTSA numbers are emblematic of the problems that we're facing. So my question is, what are your thoughts on adding a technology layer, including LiDAR and vehicle-to-pedestrian technologies, to existing elements of Vision Zero, which include education, enforcement, and infrastructure, and using these technologies as a powerful tool to slow the number of fatalities? So Suzanne, I'm going to actually ask you this one first, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here also. So we love the idea of using certainly any of these sensor technologies as a great add and as a leading way of detecting pedestrians and detecting vehicles and detecting objects. As we look to launch our automated bus consortium, AECOM is leading the automated bus consortium, where we will be buying up to 100 highly automated full-size transit buses, probably that RFP will come out in the next month. And as we do that, we're looking forward to LiDAR and as a major aspect of the vehicles that we will be buying and deploying in major cities across the country that are fully and highly automated, as certainly as a great part of being able to achieve Vision Zero on that equipment. Likewise, it becomes additionally important, Laura, to your point, as we have, struggled so much with connected vehicles, right? We look for that to be so such a key part of being able to detect pedestrians and indirect way of being able to do that out of line of sight. And so this is a great way to augment the stack on those vehicles as we buy them to help achieve some of those same goals.
Excellent, thank you. George, I'm going to go to you. As a state, same question. What are your thoughts on adding that technology layer to Vision Zero efforts?
Yeah, we really love that fact too, because we track all the data and all the stats, and we all know that we can attribute about 90% of a lot of our crashes to human error. And so I really do think that technology side of things is going to help alleviate that and address some of that. And we do look at things as far as the education, enforcement, and the infrastructure, but even things as far as taking advantage of the connected vehicle technology for even our seatbelt surveys, because we know we have a lot of crashes that occur due to unrestrained passengers. And so currently, whenever we report to NHTSA, we're doing physical boots on the ground field surveys for seatbelts to see, whenever they're using them. But if we can use connected vehicle data to see when a passenger or even driver is clicking, unclicking, that gives us really good results. Then we can take in turn and use for the education side of things and strategically target where we want to place our education funds for seatbelt safety campaigns. That's one side of it. And even infrastructure as well. I mean, there's just a lot of opportunities that we see from a statewide perspective to be able to utilize the technology on the infrastructure side of things and work collectively with our local partners who own and maintain majority of our signals in our state. So I mean, there's definitely a great opportunity to take advantage of the technology, and especially now that it's kind of more in the infancy and we're starting to understand the data that we can collect from roadside units, our RSUs we're installing, or our onboard units that we're even starting to install in our own fleet, state fleet, and understand the data we're collecting and how to utilize it, how to share with our industry partners and how they can utilize it as well.
Yes, data sharing and use of data is another key issue in this discussion. John, from the tech company perspective, same question to you. Adding that technology layer to Vision Zero, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, thank you, Laura. It's great to be here, and I appreciate Suzanne and George joining the panel as well. I'll come at it from a little bit different of a perspective, right? We've heard a lot today about LiDAR and other sensors on vehicles for ADAS and AV, but I focused on a lot of our infrastructure programs and efforts here at Velodyne, and as the technology matures, there's a great deal of opportunity to utilize LiDAR in a fixed position. So utilize it on a light pole or a street light, or monitoring a sidewalk, because a lot of the same benefits that you utilize LiDAR in automotive applications, you can see in all lighting conditions, get really wide, nice field of view and long ranges. Those are all applicable from a infrastructure standpoint. And if we want to have infrastructure that is smart and not only helps throughput of vehicles, but also protects other vulnerable road users like bicyclists and pedestrians, we need technology that can see in all times of day, in all lighting conditions and weather conditions, and really gives us the information that we need to make smart infrastructure choices. We shouldn't be relying on just crash data in order to assess what needs to be changed at an infrastructure along a highway. We need to know the near miss data, and try to proactively try to control accidents. And so it's not only about analytics of understanding, where those issues are, but then also there's the real-time element too, which I think is important and goes to George's point, of kind of V2X and enabling better connectivity and understanding of what's happening at that intersection so that it can be communicated to the signals and to the road users.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some excellent points that I see Suzanne shaking her head, and George as well. I know that they agree with. I do want to, George, ask you a next question about a lot of the attention about pedestrian and other fatalities has been in urban areas and dense environments. And Texas is an interesting state because you certainly have some of the largest urban areas Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, but you also have very rural areas of your state. So I wanted to see if you can talk for a minute about how are you approaching that? How are you approaching deploying technology, both in urban and rural areas of the state? And what role do you see it playing in those various jurisdictions?
Yeah, that's a great question and great points, Laura. And what's interesting is, so we get all of our data electronically for all of our crash reports across the state. So we pretty much have, a turnaround of about 3 to 5 days from when a crash occurs, even a fatality, to when it's in our system. So from 2018 to 2021, approximately 70% of our pedestrian fatalities were in urban areas. So even though a large part of our state is rural, and so with the rural aspect side of it, when we start mapping out all of our assets, it was easy for us to identify where we have a lack in connectivity, a lack of broadband serving the rural areas. And so, it's really difficult to get a lot of that built out, but we were able to develop a gap plan to see where we need to put an emphasis on it, but to address it immediately, because we cannot wait till we fill those areas. We did use a lot of our data and develop a lot of education and enforcement campaigns in our rural areas. And even one of the items that came about that's a little bit separate from the technology side of things is we developed bicycle and pedestrian kits, and we were able to provide these kits to 80% of all the elementary schools across the state. And we were able to utilize funding that we had through a Safe Routes to School program. And then not only that, use the data to show how we can address that. As far as the technology side of things, to address really where we have 70% of our pedestrian fatalities, is we work closely with the municipalities, because they maintain and operate, or own and operate, the majority of all the signals. And so we work with them in coexist in TMCs. And in these TMCs, we're working with them to ensure we have that connectivity, so that we do have items such as we can communicate out there with RSUs for the signals. We can address our signal and our phasing and our timing. And we even had our TTI, Texas Transportation Institute, do a research project on developing some of the integral parts of the intersections that we need to look at. And just a quick little plug on that, it was actually a research project 06875. And so what that research project did is it focused specifically on reducing crashes involving pedestrians and bicyclists at signalized intersections, using camera sensors, and then also developing and installing RSUs at each of our signal cabinets so that they can communicate the information, broadcast warnings and alerts, not only to the TMCs, but even to pedestrians, to their cell phones that were there, that they were using at that time as well. So those are some of the areas that we're working on with our local partners for that, to address those.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously have, in a state as big as Texas, you have to have a comprehensive plan that as you said, captures all of those different areas with very different needs. And, as we talk about infrastructure, Suzanne, want to ask you a question. AECOM is, building infrastructure in cities all around the world. Can you talk a little bit about, is AECOM incorporating Vision Zero principles into the early stages of street design? And are you incorporating, a technology layer, including V2X, into roadway designs?
Yes, we are. And we do. We certainly, and it's interesting that you asked that too, because we're actually doing a great street design in the town where I live in Florida. And so it's been really fantastic to be a user of the roadway for bicycling, and as a pedestrian and as a driver, and watch our team do a fantastic job integrating some of those principles that will be life-saving for, not only for our town, but also for my family, which is always great to watch that stuff in real life up close. Yeah, absolutely. And then certainly we're doing that at a broader, even global, and a global approach, and certainly integrating technologies such as LiDAR for intersections. Absolutely, we love that, and connectivity, right? We've struggled with connected vehicles probably for the past 2 years, right? So we don't have it as much as would like to. Early in the connected vehicle discussions, NHTSA had estimated that approximately 80 that connected vehicles direct connected vehicles could potentially cut fatalities down by about 82%. So that 82% of non-impaired crashes could be addressed with the use of direct connected vehicle technology. So we would certainly love to see that, and we are absolutely supporting our clients in that, and looking at and growing that. And another interesting way to grow that and make roads safer is actually through payment systems, Laura. So that's another opportunity that we're looking at with AECOM, and then also with the Society for Automotive Engineers, where we're developing standards to execute payment systems over direct communication, which will then, potentially enable them to be deployed more frequently to use for safety.
Oh, interesting. Can you talk just a little bit more about the payment system angle, just for viewers who may not be as familiar?
Yeah, sure. So you may know the Society for Automotive Engineers. They're a standards development organization that manages a lot of the application layer standards for direct V2X communications, right? So the basic safety message, for example, all developed under SAE. So I'm chairing the committee for tolling and RUC and payment systems messages over direct communication, and then also ultimately over telematics to support RUC. And my idea, the reason I was elected to chair that, the reason I wanted to chair that, is because of the importance of, as George was saying so clearly, of deploying this potentially life-saving technology, right? And how do we get more of it deployed? So the more of it we get deployed, the more lives we can save. And so the idea is that if we have some standards that the toll collection agencies or the RUC collection agencies, or really any agency that can collect payment, can use that to help pay for some of the deployments, right? So that was my thinking in leading that effort. So we're actually in ballot right now. So there'll be a second vote for our standard, and we're really excited that it'll probably be complete by the end of this year.
Great, that's interesting. I know connected vehicle technology is something that we all have supported. ITS America has supported for a long time, and we are still pushing forward and encouraging deployment. As we all mentioned, it is one of our best tools to reduce fatalities on our roads. But John, switching back over to you and LiDAR, want to ask you a couple questions. There's been some studies that have suggested that AVs are not as good at detecting darker skin pigments. And why don't you talk a little bit about LiDAR and some of its capabilities? You mentioned some of them a little bit earlier. And I also know that you had mentioned to me earlier that you're working actually on a pilot in Austin. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that you're learning from that as well.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, there's current technologies that are being widely deployed today with respect to camera or radar. They have their capabilities, but also to some extent are lacking in some capabilities that LiDAR plays a role in helping to improve overall performance. With respect to identifying objects in tough lighting conditions or weather conditions or whatnot. LiDAR plays an interesting role, especially at the infrastructure level, when we think about having sensors everywhere that are monitoring what we do and communicating that to the light signals or to whomever. There's a real sense of privacy concern. It's probably much further along in the conversation in Europe with GDPR, and we're actually seeing some cities there won't even deploy camera-based technologies for anything. But there's still a real need for that data. LiDAR doesn't capture that kind of information to be able to identify somebody's face or tell distinguish the color of their skin. And so there's some advantages there that can be helpful both from a policy perspective, as well as just kind of constituents or citizens' approval or interest in allowing this sort of technology to be deployed. And it's one of the big reasons that we are doing some work in Texas. They really strong, innovative city in Austin that's always on the cutting edge of of new technology and understanding how it can help improve things there. And with that city just exploding in population growth, there are a lot of traffic issues that have come up. One of the policies in Texas is not being able to leverage camera for enforcement types of applications. And so there is some concern about cameras going up, even if it's the data is encrypted or faces are blurred or whatnot. There's still some concerns, and they're not the only state. Obviously, I mean, facial recognition has been banned in a number of cities around the country for law enforcement activities. So it's a growing conversation, I think in Texas and other areas where we have pilots going up a number of different cities around the country on coast to coast and in between, there's a number of different use cases and applications that where LiDAR is being utilized, as I mentioned earlier, both on the analytics side for near detection and just efficiency modeling, as well as on the signal actuation side. So it kind of, it kind of depends on the application. We're looking at intersections and wrong way entrances for highways. We're looking at wildlife detection types of applications. There's a number of infrastructure applications where smart sensors can really help improve safety, efficiency, and also protect people's privacy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And George, I'll just give you a chance to see if you want to add anything or respond on the issues that John brought up.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And like John said, with the privacy concerns and we're not even currently allowed to do any type of automated enforcement. This does give us another avenue to leverage that technology and still be able to address some of the areas that we do have concerns on. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier is we've been successful in getting some ATC MTD grants, and one of them is a Texas Connected Freight Corridor. And on that one, when we are installing some OBUs onto our fleet and having them collect that data, even at the signalized intersections where we might have some LiDAR equipment installed, or even working with the transit company where we have looking at bus transit, where we have passengers unloading and loading. We're working with some of our external partners to have some OBUs installed on there as well, all to address our vulnerable road users. And at the same time, we don't have to worry about, because here in Texas, of course, we do have dust storms, we have our winter weather, snowstorms, we have various weather conditions, hurricanes, and the lighting changes, and not having to worry about that with the utilization of LiDAR as opposed to cameras is very beneficial for us as well. So yeah, there's a lot of good items there that we can leverage and use.
Yeah, John, I'll have to get your name in front of my county, because there was a lot of hullabaloo last year when one of the county council members suggested, having cameras for enforcement, and there was a lot of uproar about privacy. So it's always nice to be able to talk about the potential of a new technology, or another technology that can solve some of these challenges that we're facing and actually significantly improve safety at the same time. So now I want to ask you all another question. We talked about at the beginning about a safe systems approach that assumes shared responsibilities. One entity cannot do it alone. You all represent key sectors here, tech company, infrastructure firm, state public agency. I'd love your thoughts on, how can we enhance our collaboration among the various players to actually really better achieve our Vision Zero goals? And Suzanne, I'll start with you.
Everybody should join ITS America.
Yeah,
well
right.
said.
So, you put me first. So, Laura, so I think that, if you didn't guess, I love standards, right? So I love the idea of harmonizing around some common goals that we want to achieve, some minimum viable products for safety, or minimum viable, solutions for safety. we have vision zero, which means zero fatalities. It would be great to have some agreement about what are some timelines for when we want to achieve what, and then maybe we can figure out how. But it would be great to start to look at how, at timelines and a roadmap that we can, harmonize on for deployment of technologies in areas. Competitions are fun for that too. As I think Texas, George could probably tell you about some of the competitions for connected intersection deployments and connected freight deployments. Those are really fun to get everyone to get working together too, and also to be able to put forth a good solution that can save some folks' lives.
So a little structure and a little incentive, right?
I think so. Yep.
Yep. George, how about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I really can piggyback on that well because of what Suzanne said is, our Texas Transportation Commission that oversees our Department of Transportation are very, very strong safety advocates. And we monitor the numbers daily. And as of right now, in 2021, Texas, we have 3,506 fatalities. So as of last Friday, we're trending to be over 4,000 fatalities in our state. And that's the first time since the 80s that that's occurred. So the advancement in vehicle safety, and yet we're still, where we are. And this is coming, just on the eve of the NHTSA releasing their numbers as well. And so with our commission being very aware of that, they actually passed a minute order in March of 2019 that directed Texas Department of Transportation to achieve zero fatalities by 2050 and half by 2035. So they laid out some deadlines and timeframes for us. With that being said, we've been fortunate with some of the competitions like Suzanne that mentioned to have our technology coalition where we have external partners and we have OEMs and we all work collectively to pursue these grants that are going to benefit all of us collectively. And that's how we've got the Smart City Challenge in Houston, or even the TPAS, the truck parking assistance system, availability system, and then the Texas Connected Freight Corridor. So, we work collectively with all of them to achieve that. And then now our commissions even started a safety council or safety task force where our commission's working directly with some of our MPO directors to ensure any projects that we're working on with the MPOs have a certain safety aspect or component with them in order to do that. Then on top of that, we also have a cooperative and automated transportation program and system plan where we're looking at not just vehicular, but all forms of transportation, whether it's maritime, since we have maritime, rail, and then airspace as well. So we're looking at all that collectively, working with our external partners, and we got them all on board to achieve this road to zero. So that's a really great question, and we have a lot going on here that it's exciting and getting in the forefront and realizing the importance of it, and then setting that time frame, setting that goal, getting us all on board. And I think it's working, and it's going to go for a long ways for us that we can achieve that goal.
Yeah, well, it certainly shows that, and John, you'll get the last word. I would say it certainly shows that why Texas is a leader in the deployment. And John, please.
Yeah, and that's I was just going to add on to that. I mean, I think George and Texas DOT's leadership is really showing, and there's having a perspective of working with all 50 states. We see also a lot of really great activity in all these states, and there's, I think, what's really helping us to coordinate is that we have a really strong federal DOT, with a great administration that is on the forefront, or we're almost to kind of this big infrastructure bill that really could help bring some needed funds to really start pushing through and getting going a lot of these really exciting initiatives. And because of the work that's been ongoing to understand what types of technologies are there, how they can all work together, state DOTs are sharing all that information with each other. They're talking, they're communicating through organizations like yours, Laura. And that's so important because we can figure out, collectively what works and what doesn't work, and who needs to work together in order to, achieve those goals that George is talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the collaboration, the communication is key. I know we're out of time, so I want to thank you all so much for participating. We all look forward to hopefully the infrastructure bill passing and technology, especially safety technologies, being some key investments that are made to help make our roads safer. So thank you all for your participation and commitment.